Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Tower of Babble podcast. As always, I am Julian Mush. I am joined by Jeremy Kozier,
Hello.
and we're going to be talking about the latest in film and television news today. Not the busiest in news stuff. There's some big stories, but we're making it up in the size of the stories instead of the quantity of stories this week, as opposed to last episode. The Emmy nominations are out, so we'll talk about that. There's more noise out of Warner Brothers about the Snyder Cut stuff. We'll never not be talking about it. We'll be 100 years old and we'll still be talking about the Snyder Cut somehow. So there's that. We have an agree or disagree segment, and tons of kind of fun little pieces here and there, including something from Sylvester Stallone, which actually isn't that fun, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Before we do, I will remind everyone, if you are new to the show, please head over to Twitter at Tower Babblecast on Twitter. That's the best place to keep up with everything that we do and we cover, especially where I'll certainly be tweeting out about different news stories throughout the weeks. And it's where I generally collect all our news also from. Facebook.com/Tower Babblecast. And you can watch us live. We actually are live right now on YouTube and on Twitch. We'll currently on Twitter as well, but we will be losing Twitter as a live platform at the end of July. So just be aware of that. That being said, yeah, all right. Well, the thing is, here's the thing, okay? I love Twitter. I love it. But, and I actually like that we can just send out our live feed to there. And I don't want to lose it as a live feed, but we just don't get the insane engagement that we do and we get on Twitch and YouTube. And I have other better engagements, I would argue, through Twitter, and planning on doing another Twitter space, so you can do Twitter spaces there as well, and so I'm planning on doing that for a conversation on The Bear. Stay tuned for when that comes. It's not premiering in Canada until August 8th, but keep an eye on Twitter for that. And then if you want to help support the show, head over to patreon.com/Tower Babblecast, where for as little as $5 a month, you'll get access to our bonus film club. This month we'll be covering the Boondock Saints 2 All Saints Day. We actually covered the original film last month, so stay tuned for that one as well. Of course, you get access to all of our previous ones. The one I like to always highlight, Days of Thunder. If you're if you're on a Tom Cruise kick following Top Gun, definitely recommend that. Another Tony Scott film. So let's get into the news here, and let's start, as we almost always do, with some negative press out of Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers claims that a portion of the online Snyder Cut movement was bots. I'll read from a piece here from Vanity Fair. After the Whedon-completed film bombed at the box office, a viral internet campaign to release Snyder Cut's version of Justice League reached a fever pitch via the hashtag release in Snyder Cut, ultimately leading to the release of the 4-hour version of the HBO Max on HBO Max on March of 2021. But per Rolling Stone's findings, 2 reports, which important to note here, commissioned by Warner Media, found that, quote, at least 13% of the accounts that took part in the conversation about the Snyder Cut were deemed fake, uncut. That was reading from a piece from Vanity Fair. Though this hit piece, it's been dubbed, is on the Rolling Stone. The report goes on to implicate Snyder himself in an effort to, quote-unquote, weaponize the social media following, which he has denied. Jeremy, what was your first reaction when you saw this?
I think it was just like just confusion, just like what? And then like and then Rolling Stone like tweeted the article in like 8 different ways with like different excerpts from the article.
Right, they're doing the time fashioned, the good old fashioned method of just like seeing which headlines will stick, basically.
And then it was apparently like rumored that an article of this nature was going to be released. Like it was just kind of, I guess, because the lady did a bunch of research, or I don't know. It's
right. There was
absolutely
rumors.
bananas that this thing has been released. And then I think like Ray Fisher was tweeting
Yes.
with it or something, like, and then people who worked for Rolling Stone were like, again, it's all just like a bunch of like gotcha moments or something, and it's like they all
Yeah.
just turn out to be like
It's very
so
childish.
dumb, and it's like, what is the point? Like, this movie came out finally in 2021.
Yep.
What are
It's
we
been over a year.
still? Why can't people just let it go? Like,
I
after
don't
it's
know.
come out, and the what does the article say? It says something about how Zack Snyder brought a studio to its knees.
Well, the implication was that one of the things that it talked about was that Jeff Johns and John
Oh
Berg
God,
uh,
fired.
were trying to sorry, unemployed, were slow to remove their names from the project. That he didn't want their names on it. Snyder didn't, and that they were taking too long to kind of go through this process. So he threatened to, like, this is where that
Yeah, then there's like a
weaponized comes
quote,
from.
and it's like
Yeah,
completely hearsay,
yeah, and he again,
out of
Snyder
context. It's
denies
just,
this. Yeah,
oh man, and then it released the night before July 19th, which is when the Snyder Cut is now available digitally.
right,
Um,
to like buy or rent on like
yeah, yeah, you can like
iTunes or whatever.
buy
Yeah,
it digitally now instead of just streaming it on HBO Max or Crave or
right.
whatever. Yeah, I don't
So
know. It just seems like all the anti-Snyder people are quote tweeting it. All the blue check marks who hated his movies are just like, see, like it's just it makes me wanna. I don't
although
know.
there was, I did you see that one? It was floating around a lot on the internet on Twitter, which was, and of course, the all of the world is not Twitter for the, which is sometimes hard to remember. But um, there was some, I can't remember his name now, but he was saying that it was from a quote unquote blue check mark that they put out an article. It might have been EW or something like that, was basically saying that Warner Brothers claims about this doesn't quite add up,
Oh yeah,
and so it's,
There was a Forbes article.
yeah, okay, that's what it was,
Yeah,
Forbes, and
and
so
it's like, yeah, it's like finally well, to me it's like, hey, like some clarity here, some
uh
people with like a head on their shoulders. Like, all the information in this article is old and was already attempted by that heroic Hollywood guy Umberto Gonzalez,
hmm
who it was about the Oscar thing. Tried to say that it was all
well, that was a
bots or
part of
whatever.
this too, which was
But
that
then
yeah.
what's that?
Well, that was a part of
Yeah,
this article as well. That like the
yeah,
entering the Speed Force, which say what you will about that moment at the Oscars, it's certainly controversial. I would, at
sure.
the very least.
But then
Um,
like that article was like amended like pretty much immediately after, with like how the sites weren't properly sourced, and then the Academy themselves standing by their results.
hmm
And then now with this whole bot thing, they're trying to focus on this 13%. And then everyone's like, you can like, I guess, put accounts through some sort of filter system
yeah,
to like see inactive or bot accounts. And like most of these accounts that have millions of followers, it's like 30% or 20% are bots.
yeah,
Um, so it's just a to me it just seems like a childish like attack out of nowhere, to try to deem this thing inorganic or fraudulent. It even says, one Warner Bros exec said Zack Snyder was like a Lex Luthor
yeah.
wreaking
Which is
havoc
so
behind the
funny.
scenes.
It's so funny that they
It's
use
like,
that
what? This guy's
that
just making
specific
movies,
quote.
man. Yeah,
Um, okay, so from my perspective, if I'm trying to wrap my head around this, and I've been having a hard time doing it, which is that it's odd to me that this story came out, because what does Warner Media, the new Warner Brothers
well,
Discovery
actually,
merger,
Warner
have?
Media is the one that did the research into the bots, and
Yes,
that's what this article is citing. But
yes,
it states in the thing that Warner Discovery declined to comment on the story, which is the current company.
right. So this is old. So you're saying this is all old
This
news,
is all old, yes.
which does makes this even make less sense, because then it's like, what's the what are we really revealing here? That the old company that was being mismanaged, it was, had sour grapes. Shocker, not
Yeah.
really, right? Like,
I've been
it's
talking about
like,
these sour grapes for a long time too.
yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I think I remember when this all came out originally, which was like, okay, yeah, the movie's gonna come out, and my concern at the time, and I think was shared by some others, which was that, the movie's going to come out, but this, whatever this mess was that it created, this, and whatever it is, which is hard to even pin down, it won't go away, and it hasn't gone away, and so I guess maybe that's what this is about, which is just trying to. If Warner Discovery declined to comment on this, it does give me a little bit more clarity, because they would probably want nothing to do with this. Like, please stop talking about Snyder Cut. Please start looking at their new movies that we made. Isn't the Suicide Squad good? That kind of stuff, right? And this would be the last thing they would want to do, I would think, because they have nothing to gain. This is something that, it really feels like coming from the old.
What is the nature of a hit piece? Is that a legitimate thing? Like,
I'm
only
that
coming
concept?
into contact. Yeah, like I think we knew of that concept. I don't know if
Right.
we have any examples where we know it's like an actual thing.
I'm
I
sure
don't
we
know,
could dig
but
some
here
up.
it just seems so obvious. It's like I said before, the company is in a huge transition period. There are still people in play. Jeff Johns and John Berg were fired. They're in
Yeah.
this article as if they're some sort of victims, because there's this
Right.
hearsay quote that Zach said that I will end you on social media.
Right. Yeah.
It's like they fired Zack Snyder and used a family tragedy as a cover up and got rid of everything that he brought to the table for his story in his movie. And all these people are crying because it was a campaign. People are like, well, what is this nonsense? Like, we saw the trailers, we know what the story is, like what's going on
Right.
here. So much so that, and obviously with the pandemic and HBO Max and Jason Keelar, people saw an opportunity to open the vault, grab the footage, and let him finish his version, and
Right.
it finally got released, and it's a 4-hour epic, and like, let it go, leave it be, it happened.
Right.
So what are we're trying to
And
say
it's
that
like,
bots are the reason?
it's not like he's even, it's not like, sure, there is a definite movement that's like, yeah, finish his work, let him come back and make
Oh,
the
for sure,
Justice
yeah.
League 2 and all that stuff. But it's like, that's hardly the I guess the level of noise that was generated for release of Snyder Cut was 10x probably what the level of noise is around, the organic demand for Justice League Part 2, right? Which a lot of people are just coming to terms with the fact that it's just not going to, probably just not going to happen, right? And
Yeah.
that sucks. But it's not the same. It's not to the same degree as what this was. And by the way, 13%, although it's a bit of a weird, it's such a crazy number, because it's like, it's big enough that it would definitely have an impact if true, right? Where if you have 13% well positioned bots that are kind of egging on the stuff, that it could create a bit of a spiral effect. It could help encourage additional engagement where it otherwise wouldn't be. But it's also
Mm.
not so big that it's like, whoa, like
Yeah.
over half of the people were bought, like, because it's like, well, no, it still seems
87 is
like
still pretty huge.
87 is still a pretty big number. You know what I mean? So it's a bit of a weird, murky middle number, but maybe that's how they, if this is truly just all bullshit, that's maybe how they came to that.
Hmm.
But to me, it's like, it's a bit of a non-story. I thought, but the funniest part I thought of this whole thing was seeing the Snyder Cut folks on Twitter all posting like Autobot and like Decepticon like memes and stuff, because they're like, because they're bots.
Yeah, they're just having fun with it.
Yeah, which is pretty funny. But like, I don't know. Ultimately, I don't understand why Rolling Stone would want to get involved in this, and I don't understand really who's to gain. There's nothing. There's no net outcome here. What are they deflecting from? There's no story that they're trying to deflect from. The only other story that I saw around Warner Brothers right now was that executives at Warner Brothers were not willing to tell the Batgirl directors why they had characters from multiple universes in their movie, and that Walter Hamada reportedly told them, quote, not to worry about it, and that, quote, they have a plan, unquote. Which,
Yeah, it's just
you know,
B-list character movies until what? Like, it's been 9 years since a Superman movie.
well,
9
yeah,
years, and Man
I
of
think they're
Steel is an
working on
incredible
that. I
movie.
think they're working on fixing that. But or
Well,
so
and
they say.
that's why on Twitter it's a lot of confusion in different parts of the fandom.
Right.
So for me, when I see like Black Adam is the next big thing to look at, and I guess Shazam 2 and all this stuff, it's still hard for me to let go the notion to continue Justice League when it was released last year and
Mm-hmm.
it was really good. Like what for me, just nothing excites me quite as much as seeing that kind of saga conclude.
Right.
Um, because I mean, SDCC is what this weekend,
Yeah,
and
it's coming
it's
up.
confirmed that Shazam and Black Adam panels, and then
Mm-hmm.
just dropped um today. There's a rumor that Henry Cavill might show up, and I don't know, something about Superman.
Well, San Diego Comic Con is going to always have rumors buzzing
Yeah.
around it. I will hold our judgment till those till that stuff actually comes out, and of course we'll cover it on the show. In a week or so, once it's all the dust is settled,
Hmm.
we have a chance to really think it through. But yeah, it's just an odd time for a story like this to come out. The motivations are questionable. Um, the outcomes are questionable. Like I don't even know who was gained by this. Clicks for Rolling Stone, maybe. I mean, that's about as close as I can think of. So yeah, just an odd one. Just an absolute head scratcher for Warner Brothers this week. You know, we talked about last episode, things not being good with the Flash movie. I mean, it really couldn't be worse with the Flash movie, and now you've got these weird hit pieces coming out of the past, it seems like. So they just need to release another movie and start talking about things with clarity again. I think that's really what they have to do. So let's move on to something similar, actually, but from the other side of the aisle, which rarer than you might think. We talk about all these stories out of Warner Brothers, how difficult things seem to be over there, and then Marvel's just out there releasing movies, making $1 billion 3 times a year, right? And it turns out things aren't all what they seem. Obviously, aren't all as rosy as they might seem. So there's an article out of IGN, and I'll read some elements of it. But it's basically talking about how creators, and referencing Snyder here, would as a segue makes a lot of sense, because they're talking about the creators of these characters, of some of these new Marvel characters, kind of being given a raw deal by Disney in terms of what they're getting paid on their characters being featured in these absolutely massive hit movies, right? So again, I'll read from this article here. The co-creators of Yelena Belova say that they thought they signed a contract entitling them to a $25,000 a piece for the Black Widow movie and the various other appearances that came along with it, such as action figures, video games, etc. Instead, they were just paid $5,000. So that's crazy. But so let me break it down a little bit here. Quote: This is writer David Grayson. It's like the publisher clearinghouse sweepstakes. You could win $1 million, but you won't. Essentially, the contract seems to offer very clear terms of payment. Her agreement, signed in 2007, states that Grayson will receive $25,000 for a theatrical film appearance of the character, $2,000 for an episode of TV over 30 minutes, and $1,000 for an episode of TV 30 minutes or less. There's an agreement for toy sales and other merchandising, including action figure sales, which would mean $5,000 for one figure released in a year, $10,000 for two, or $25,000 for three. When it comes to video games, there was a maximum of $30,000 to be shared among all creators who had a character in the game. Those numbers, although seemingly high, actually, when you think about it, extremely low when you consider how much money these things make at the end of the day. So, according to the Hollywood Reporter, the contract includes language that would grant Marvel broad discretion to just dramatically lower payments. One method of doing so is to split the sum of $25,000 between the artist and the writer, meaning that Grayson and Jones would only ever have been entitled to a maximum of $12,500 each. Worse, if the film features more than one character covered by a special character agreement, the company is entitled to share the pot among all creators involved in that film. So essentially, that original $25,000 would be shared between all stakeholders, including those behind the characters such as Red Guardian and Melina Vostokov. However, a Marvel source states that there is no ceiling to payments made in these cases. It's likely that the studio paid more than $25,000 to artists and writers involved in the film. Quite how much remains a mystery, though. Another way Marvel allegedly reduces payments is by classifying some appearances cameos. If a character appears for less than 15% of the film's runtime, that's considered a cameo, and this also reduces the amount creators are entitled to. Hilariously, The Hollywood Reporter points out Captain America would be considered a cameo in Avengers Infinity War, where he only appeared in the movie for less than 7 minutes and 30 seconds. So it's crazy. It goes on here. Additionally, the special character agreement, the contract at the heart of this dispute, is said to include an NDA, stopping writers and artists from speaking out. In many ways, creators who refuse to sign the agreement are better off. One such creator, Joe Casey, says he received no payment for the use of his character America Chavez in the recent comic book movie Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Quote, maybe $5,000 means something to some kid in his early 20s that doesn't have a career, said Casey. For a lot of us who have been in the business for decades, it comes off as an insult, which is kind of what I was just saying. Unfortunately, $5,000 sounds like a huge amount compared to a more recent payment. After Yelena Belova appeared in the recent Hawkeye series, Grayson was expecting a $2,000 payment per episode as per her contract. Instead, Marvel offered her just $300 per episode. That's so crazy. Of course, it's not just the first time Black Widow has been the source of legal proceedings, with star Scarlett Johansson accusing Disney of breach of contract and lawsuit following the release of the film to Disney Plus. So, again, not necessarily surprising that you've got wiggle room in these contracts to not pay creators, but you would feel like by this time, by the year 2022, there's been enough backlash over this stuff that these massive multi-million billion-dollar companies, Disney certainly has a lot of money, can't be bothered to pay the creator the amount of money that they fucking said they would pay them. So, Jeremy, I don't know. What do you think about all this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, if they said they're gonna pay you this, then they should make that happen, right?
Well,
Even if it's low,
yeah,
I mean, at least like $300.
$300.
And then America
It's
Chavez
so
is a
crazy.
major character in Doctor Strange.
She's basically the main character of the movie, essentially, right?
But like, how does it like? I don't know. It's like you're a comic book artist or a writer, and you write all these comic
Right.
books, and you make your money that way, and you put your impression in that way. And then a company owns all these characters and can make movies and do whatever they want with them.
Yes.
So I don't know what like
Yeah, but this was like the same argument that they DC and Marvel were making for years with like Bill Finger and all these people who were involved in the creation of Batman, right? And they're
yeah,
just like, we're not. Well, it was paid for work contract. You made your money, right? And actually, we'll
right.
talk about this again later with Stallone.
Hmm.
And this idea, this concept, that, and by the way, I talked about last week how, or last episode, that I had watched Straight Outta Compton, and one of the main kind of conceits of that movie, or one of the main pieces of that movie, is that they kept walking away from the rights to their own music, right? They would make music, and then they would be screwed by some contract, and they would have to just walk away. Their music that they wrote, they poured their heart, sweat, and tears into, and now just someone else owns it because of some sort of
Yeah, the
bullshit
music industry
contractual agreement.
has been like that for so long. Like you
Yeah.
sign a record deal, it's like you don't get the full amount, like not even nowhere even close. So
Yeah, yeah, I just, you hate to see this across the board. I mean, it seems
yeah,
like,
with
it,
Marvel specifically, yeah.
well, especially when they have this so much money, right? It's like, really, guys, like, would you really need to be petty about this kind of stuff? Like,
Even
I
with
understand that,
Hawkeye too, like the show.
right?
Pretty sure like all like the just the costume or like just or the even like the concept I think
Mm-hmm.
was like a 2012 or something comic run even had the same font and Hawkeye logo.
Yeah.
And
From
like
the
that guy
yes.
didn't get anything.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like they'll just borrow liberally from this stuff, and so it's complicated because yeah, you're right. I mean, they did make they go to work for Marvel, which is their dream probably in some cases for these kids, and they're making. And I say kids. I mean, some of these creators are not kids, but in some cases you got some younger creators in there, and it's like, you know, sure they're signing contracts, they don't really know what they're getting themselves into, and all of a sudden they've done all this work and they don't own a single piece of any of their work. And
Mhm.
I don't think it's as simple as, oh, creators should always own 100% of their work and all that kind of stuff. I don't think that is the case, because there is a business to be run, and I understand that. But I just think this idea of just like treating these people as disposable when really they're the heart and soul of how this all works. Like, no one
Mhm.
cares about these movies if the characters aren't at the center of it. And America Chavez was a really great character in that movie, and the creator deserves to be paid for coming up with that character, right? I just it just seems simple. Just do the right thing. I don't
Yeah.
understand why this has to be so hard.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. That's just a little bit of bad news. Let's get to the more fun stuff. Okay. By the way, you have Jason Telford here on YouTube in the chat asking if we've seen the Patterson cut of Kenobi yet. And I actually had a note here, so I'll just touch on it right now, which is that they had cut together a 2.5 hour long movie, essentially, of the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. They cut it down. And I always thought this was funny because it was, quote, to fix the awkward pacing and goofy dialogue and directing choices. And when I saw that, I just thought that the use of the word goofy was funny in this context, but I also 100% agree, because there was some goofiness there. And listen, Star Wars has some goofiness, right? That's not outside of the norm, but I would
Director's
have
choices.
I
You
would
don't
have
like
really
some of these
liked
choices by the director who did the whole thing, so
so I'm going to remake it, recut it into something I prefer. Now, again, obviously this has been something, Star Wars is not new to this either, because there's that famous cut of the prequels that was cut into one movie.
Topher cut.
The Topher cut, which I feel like, Jeremy, what do you think? In our lifetime, will we see that? Will that be released in some way that we'll be able to see? Or do we have to go knock on his door?
I've been in a lifetime, like years, like decades from now.
They always talk about how we're not gonna see it,
Why
and
don't we
it's
just do
always
it ourselves?
yeah. I know you've talked about that. Wouldn't it be crazy? Like you did it and you like compared it, you like send it into Topher, be like, how close is this to yours?
Well, it's just you have three movies and you have to just be like, hey, I'm cutting out all like the side plots basically.
Right. Really
And
get down to the brass tack, and then
it's
you
all about
probably use
Obi-Wan. It's
yeah
basically all about Obi-Wan,
yeah
Anakin, Qui-Gon in the beginning,
Well, I
and
think you
then
probably use the
yeah.
for episode 1 as like flashback material, and you probably don't even do it in chronological order. But anyway, that's all to say.
It's tough because like the movie on its own, like certain like the third act is pretty cool, like when
Of
everything's
episode 1.
happening. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
like final act.
but it's like, you could probably just like leave out the part where Anakin like steals a fighter pilot, fighter jet,
Wait,
10
but
years old,
what did he made the prequels into one
into
movie is what he said?
one film.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. I mean, and it's like with that many movies, you could probably do the 4 hour epic. You could do a
And
four
then did
hour
he
prequel
go
epic.
like did he fine tune it to where like he was able to like delete some soundtracks so like the music was like
I'm
you know
sure he got. I'm sure he like. I'm sure he got access to like footage without sound, so he could like reuse,
You
like
think
use
so?
different music.
I don't think so. There's no way.
Well,
How?
everyone talks about it's like it's so amazing, but it wouldn't be so amazing if like all the sound was all jumbled up and crappy.
Well, I just mean like because he's gonna cut a lot out, right? So if there's music playing,
That's what I
you have
mean.
to somehow uh lower it or delete it or transition it, which
Well,
is
people do. I feel like
I'm
people
sure
do
there's
that stuff
technology
for
that can do
TikTok all the time. If the TikTok kids can do it, I feel like Topher Grace can figure it out.
it.
You know. Um. Anyway, there's an Obi-Wan version. I would be keen to see it. I have not, but Jason makes a note here. It hurts to realize we could have had that in a theater experience, and
Is it
there's
available to watch?
it's online. Yeah.
Oh
This
yeah.
not the Topher cut. This
No, I know.
Obi-Wan. Yeah, the
Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan
Yeah,
one.
I mean, like if I was to ever, like for me, when I think about the show, like obviously it had its ups and downs and like
Mm-hmm.
a really cool, through line with these characters and actors who've been around this whole time. So like that in and of itself is just so cool and unique, um, and rewarding that when I don't like clamor to watch all 6 episodes. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah,
just
I
want to
want just
see
like
moments.
pieces. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So having a 2.5 hour, which is essentially a highlight reel, of all the best
Yeah.
stuff, because they're obviously not gonna, get rid of like the
Well,
Darth Vader stuff.
it cuts right to the chase, right? It's
Yeah.
like what's important here, and I think ultimately this piece about the theatrical experience, it was, it was aired in theaters, in Toronto for one special night.
So can't
Look,
you
but
rent out a theater on your own and play whatever you want?
that's a good question. I don't know, but
You need
I
to
feel
find that
like
out.
I, I feel like what if you could rent out a theater, play whatever you want, and then charge people tickets to come see it?
Yeah, that's the weird legal part.
Right. I just like for me, I just would have loved to have seen this stuff in theaters. It would have given it that much more gravitas, and I think
Right.
that's what's missing there. Okay, so couple quick stories here. We'll just run through them. There is an animated Powerpuff Girl reboot in the works from the original creator Craig
Finally.
McCracken. Now, yes, exactly, Jeremy. Now, listen, I'm no huge Powerpuff Girls super fan of any sort. I did enjoy the show when I was a kid. It's very funny, but and if I probably went back and watched it, there's a whole bunch of jokes I probably missed as a kid. But uh, the reason I mention this here is because remember there was that story about the CW live action show that they were going to do the sequel series, and
Yeah,
that all fell
apparently
apart.
it's like in a new I think it's like in a new development stage.
I thought it got completely canned, like that they weren't
Yeah,
that
like
the
whatever they
stars were like,
had,
I'm not interested in this.
yeah, like whatever they had is garbage, I'm pretty sure. But there
Yeah.
was like a bunch of weird things surrounding it. I don't know. It seemed like it kind of just was unfairly squashed.
Well, I mean, is it unfair? Do you really like? What's
Well,
the
maybe not
appetite for
unfair, just like
someone to see?
I mean unfortunate for like the actors involved and stuff like.
Well, you say that, but it sounds like some of the actors involved were like also thought it was trash.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah, I don't remember what the actual
yeah,
controversy was, but it was like a bunch of weird stuff.
yeah.
Like, oh
I-
yeah, I don't know.
It's not. Listen, there's no love lost from me over that. It was a kind of a ill conceived notion, in my opinion. I just think it's if you're gonna do these reboots, it's like be true to what the show was, and so do an animated reboot. The original creators
Yeah,
there,
it's
that
so
makes sense.
stylized. Like it's great. Like
Yeah.
even like anime right now, right? It's like the most popular thing
Mm-hmm.
on the planet. Um, it's like they're gonna slowly start making those into live action, but to transition like a Dragon Ball Z and like that energy
It's
and all that stuff, like
so hard.
how
I
are
don't.
you gonna
Yeah.
accomplish that?
It. It's. I mean, maybe it's just different sensibilities. Like people will just be more open. We've got a whole new generation of kids growing up with anime in a way that weren't really doing it before, and they'll grow up to make these movies, and they'll be like, "I've always wanted to see it in live action." And then in 15 years from now, we'll see some of these things made into live action by the fans, and it'll be done in a way that maybe we won't like, but to like some of these fans who grew up with this stuff, it'll just feel natural. I
I've
don't know what
seen
that looks like, but
I've seen one like fan made trailer for like a Naruto live action movie, and it actually looked pretty sweet.
hmm. I don't know how you. It's like you could try to capture the moments one to one, but in live action and with like great CG and all that, I just don't think it works the same way. Like there is something about the pacing of these like 100 episode like arcs and stuff that you just can't replicate in a movie. That I think that's the experience that's not being captured. And also, what's really being gained by going to live action? Like, why not just release an animated movie in theaters? I like this, a lot full length feature
Well,
film.
I think there's a Dragon Ball Z movie coming out animated, or if it
I'm
hasn't
sure.
already.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there was that one live action movie that was apparently terrible.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's brutal. I just mean like they recently released an animated one.
Right.
Um, but I mean, like with any IP, it's like live action is like the ultimate
It's the peak,
like peak of it, you know.
right? But it doesn't have to be, is what I'm saying. Let's reframe the argument. So, a couple other things. FX has renewed The Bear for another season, and the only thing you have to say to that is yes, chef, because the show is great. um,
This is another Ted Lasso like
oh,
thing. I
Jeremy,
feel
it's
like
it's. I don't know if it's better than Ted Lasso. It's completely different,
no, I
but
just
it's
mean like
very good.
another like show out of nowhere, and you have these little sayings.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess. I mean, here's the thing, though.
Like
I think this show.
what was the Ted Lasso saying?
Well, there's a bunch of different ones. There's
Yes.
believe, right? That's one of them. There was the hope that kills you. That's another one. There's a bunch.
Oh, okay.
But the Bear, which is so great about the Bear, is that it's half-hour episodes, super digestible. Only 8 episodes. By the way, digestible. Yeah, exactly. A little bit of a pun there. And and it's already out on Hulu in the States. So if you're in the States, go enjoy it. It's coming to Disney Plus. It was supposed to already come out. They tweeted and then deleted a tweet that it was supposed to have been out. Anyway, it's coming August 8th to Disney Plus in Canada. You have to watch the show. I just think if anyone's ever worked in a restaurant, it'll have it just like totally clicks. It has that pull for it just on that one level on its own. But the characters are so interesting. The dynamics are so compelling. The performances are great. The second to last episode is a all and done in one shot. It's a oneer, and of course that's we've talked about that in the past about how that can sometimes feel gimmicky, but this certainly does not. It's about like imagine if the worst case scenario in a kitchen is happening. It's like everything is falling apart at the same time. Doing it all in one shot just adds this level of chaos that just absolutely nails it. So good. So I'm like I said before, I'm looking to do a Twitter space on it later in August once everyone has had a chance to see it. So keep an eye out for that. But season 2 coming, which is great. Only Murders in the Building, another great show that flies under the radar. Renewed for season 3. Season 2 is airing right now on Disney Plus here in Canada. Speaking, we were talking about Disney Plus stuff, and speaking of, the rumor is that the Hawkeye spinoff Echo, which stars a character that I argue not many people care about, but will also star Daredevil, which maybe that'll perk up some ears. And looks like Vincent D'Onofrio will also have a role in it as well. And apparently, it'll feature a storyline that has Daredevil looking for a former ally of his, Jessica Jones. So the seeds are being planted here for the Defenders characters to get a bit of a reboot here back into the quote unquote real MCU, right?
I saw a tweet you liked where it was like someone had like a step by step like what you do like in the MCU to like
Right.
keep it fresh or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a joke thread, right? Like it was like the
Yes.
most
Yes. Yes.
outlandish
It's
thing.
super funny. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
This just reminded me of it because like, yeah, like what are they gonna do with Daredevil? It's just it'd be interesting if they just throw him in this Echo show.
Well, there's some connections to the character in the comics. It's clear that they don't have a like obvious like big plan for Daredevil. Like it doesn't look he's getting a movie anytime soon. But if they're threading him through the different Marvel shows, I think that's a pretty smart idea. I think it gives you opportunity to pull in these characters, these former Defenders characters, as you see fit. Jessica Jones is the obvious next one that I think between her and Luke Cage as the obvious ones, because those characters and actors are actually good at their job. And no offense to Game of Thrones alum Iron Fist, who was not unfortunately well cast in that role. So they have the opportunity to redo that.
He posted something recently where he's like working out, and it was some sort of Iron Fist kind of clue or something. I think.
Do you think they bring him back just so they can like hand off the mantle, be like he's here, but then don't worry, someone way better is going to take over.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know. Again, with the multiverse and all these characters existing
yeah,
and Daredevil coming into the MCU, they all technically exist, I think.
yeah.
It's just you pick and choose.
So what's funny about that? I was thinking about this the other day. It's like that comes with like the good and the bad, in my opinion, because it's like
Yes.
if everything exists, then yeah, then the fucking Ben Affleck Daredevil movie and
Yeah.
and like all that shit's there too.
Well, even
And
the
it's like
actor, even the what's his name? Uh the
Foggy.
director of yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, yeah.
yeah. So you have this scenario where you have yeah,
John
what the hell is
Favreau.
his name? John Favreau, who played Foggy in the Daredevil movie, and I think they make some sort of fun allusion to it in the Spider-Man movie.
I
But
I think it was going to be more like on the nose, but it wasn't as much in No Way Home.
they were
Also, that movie's coming out
yeah.
again in September, I think, to
Right, the
increase
more
its
fun
numbers.
version, I think they
Yeah.
called it, or something like that. I think. See, this is one of those examples where it's like you guys are just double dipping. It's really not going to be. I cannot imagine there's enough new stuff in that movie to justify a whole new
Will you
theatrical
go?
release. But what do I know?
Will you go see it?
No, I will not. No,
But yeah, I
no, I
thought
won't.
Spider-Man No Way Home was this
It is great. It's
crazy
absolutely great.
peak
It's super
cinema.
good. Is it? Well, I listen, Jim. We both love that movie. I'm not. This is not revisionist history. I'm just saying
Right.
I don't need to go to the theaters to watch deleted scenes. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, remember when they did that with Endgame or Infinity War? One of the two.
yeah,
It was
it just
brutal.
feels like an
They
absolute
they
cash
put
grab.
in a Hulk scene where the CGI was like
Not even done.
N64 graphics, and it's like this is
It's,
embarrassing. I
yeah.
only went to go see it though because they had the Stan Lee tribute or something to
Mm-hmm.
that effect at the end.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a longer
So
tribute.
you got feel like you got duped basically.
No, I knew what I knew what there was.
Right.
It's
Okay.
just looking back at it, it's like look up a screen capture of that Hulk sequence. It's like what the like what is this?
Well, I mean,
And it was like 3 seconds too.
like, and
It's
that's
like
supposed to
come
be
on.
like that's enough to be able to like. It's like that's not enough. Like I just don't. I
No.
don't know. I the
With
I
this one
understand the business
though,
of theaters, but
there's so much extra footage with the three Spider-Men. Like it's
that's
gonna be
enticing, I
you know what I mean?
suppose.
There's a
Right.
lot of dialogue, a lot of ad libs. Like what are they going to allow to exist, you know what I mean, on screen for everyone to kind of see and share
Here's the
is
question
pretty
then:
cool actually.
if when you're really releasing a movie like this in theaters with new footage, is all that new footage now considered like canon? Like, is all that stuff like did that happen, or is this just like extra stuff for the fans? We don't acknowledge that. That's like how does that all
Well,
work?
it like canon means like, story elements and
Right.
plot and stuff, right? So those types of things aren't going to change.
It's just dialogue, fun
It's
dialogue
just
stuff.
dialogue and fun, right? Like, because like Toby and Andrew, like they have the whole sequence together. Like it's super funny when he like cracks
Right.
his back.
Yes.
Like there's just gonna be more, or when Tom Holland Spider Man talks about like the organic web shooter, like how
Right. Because
him and
coming out,
Andrew kind of
yeah,
have fun, poking fun of what's his name,
Tobey Maguire.
Toby Maguire, yeah. So I just think it's gonna be more things like that.
Yeah, and honestly, that's worth it. But is it worth going to the movie theater for? Maybe if it's super hot day and you need
I
to
mean,
escape the heat.
it was a pretty crazy experience.
Listen, are you trying to sell
Right?
me on it, or what are you?
Well, I'm just trying to like get back to our like Spider-Man No Way Home review and like what we thought of it, and
Which is
like
we were very high on it.
we were very high on it. Obviously, with the nostalgia, a huge part of it, but it was done correctly,
Right.
and earned. And then we also appreciated Tom Holland's Spider-Man's journey, even though it's kind of
Right.
the same journey in each movie. It's just kind of set him into a
It
known
put him into
place
a
where
place.
Spider-Man
Yeah.
kind of always should be. You know what I
Oh, by
mean?
the way, did you hear? Did you hear the? I don't know if it was a news story, if it was a rumor, but did you hear this thing about how like Marvel Studios had to like rein in Sony, and they were like had this like crazy Spider-Man movie plan. They're like, whoa, 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 slow the hell
They
down.
didn't, but I mean, it probably did happen because
Right,
they were talking about their Sinister Six movie. I mean, it's still a thing probably,
right.
but eh, Feige definitely is gonna have to rein them in, and they're gonna have to work together if they want to like coexist.
Yeah.
And then like they can, I mean, like Sony can take Tom for a bit, and then because remember that was like the whole thing that was going to happen. Like
Yes.
Tom was done, or like he was done in the MCU.
Yeah,
Whole
that was the
Bob
whole point of
Iger
the whole
shit.
No Way
It's just
Home.
like,
He can't come
yeah,
home, right?
yeah,
That's the whole point.
right.
It's so stupid, Jeremy. It just like the business realities of this stuff just constantly get in the way of what
For
should just
sure,
be good
but I
storytelling.
think with No Way Home, it's just this example of like how you do it right.
Yes.
Like the legacy of the Spider-Man movies, obviously more so with the first trilogy or the first two movies, and then now knowing Andrew Garfield and his acting ability and appreciating, elements and things from his version, and then
Yeah.
seeing him, have fun with it again. It's just such a cool experiment, and it was just, we always talk about it, but it's all about the writers, man. Like if they just write that perfect in, then there's no complaints.
Yeah.
And No Way Home was able to achieve that.
Did I talk about it at the time? I don't remember. Did I talk about the time that the new Ghostbusters movie also kind of nailed that same experience for the record?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet though.
It's good. Okay. So a couple other bits and pieces here. Mortal Kombat 2 is in the works at Warner Brothers. Simon McQuad, is it McQuad or McQuaid? I don't understand how you say his name. Is reportedly slated to direct again. This is coming from Deadline. Jeremy, gut reaction to knowing that the same person who helmed the first movie is going to be back to helm the second one.
Well, that sounds like you're
A
loading
little
that
bit of a
question
loaded
up.
question. Yeah.
Um, well, we, I think immediately it was deemed a huge success. I think
Yes.
even this new article, it says it overperformed. So from the jump, um, and if you're a fan of certain series and stuff, when you hear that, like, relatively soon, like that's pretty sweet. And I remember just
Yep.
being happy because I love Mortal Kombat, um, just as an IP, as a game, as a world. I just think it's so cool. So we already knew this. It's just it's for me, all this is, it's just very nice and exciting to hear that
They're
they're
not
moving
just,
forward. They're moving
yeah.
forward with it. In terms of the creator here, I don't know. I watched a lot of like of the trailers, and like they did a lot of like creator trailers and like
Yeah.
behind the scenes, and the guy is like very invested in the lore and the world and bringing like that one for one kind of feel, but
Mm-hmm.
also he's obviously, adding new characters like the
Well,
main
that whole
character
new
Cole.
stupid concept about
Yeah.
what the hell do they call it, Jeremy? Do you remember what it was even called? The like the
Yeah, I
essence,
don't know. Well,
their
yeah.
whatever, like
Yeah, but
their
it's,
mojo.
I mean, it's not that far from like abilities that you discover or
Well, it's like
learn about in Mortal
yeah,
Kombat.
metahuman stuff. It's like it's
Yeah,
yeah,
or
sure.
like the animality in Mortal Kombat, things like that.
Oh yeah, like
It
the
was
some of the
just
yeah
the
yeah
pacing of that movie, the like again, it's Warner Brothers, right? Like that movie went through reshoots for sure. It was
mm-hmm.
cut down to a shorter
Two and
runtime.
a half yeah
There's certain fights in that movie that are it's just baffling how short they are. Like the Kung Lao and the, I forget the dragon, like kind of lady,
right.
bat lady. It's so it's stupid how short it is. Um,
Yeah.
so, and there's a lot of great elements. A lot of good actors in there. Like the guy who plays Scorpion is really cool. Forgetting his name, but he's been in a lot of cool projects. I think that we last saw him in Army of the Dead. Actually, he was like the guy who like set up the whole
Yeah, yes,
mission or whatever.
he's a quite yeah, he's a very good Asian actor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes, because the first movie was just kind of dipping its toes and seeing the interest, and I think they did enough right and enough to appease game fans.
Hmm.
So I think maybe if they just up the budget a little bit, because I think it was made for a pretty low budget on purpose, um, and it worked out. So
Right.
yeah, I don't
Well, I
know.
mean, because I think they were planning on releasing it to streaming only. I think is that not what happened, or at least simultaneously? I think in streaming it.
It was the HBO Max thing where it was like day and date. I'm pretty sure,
Right.
but not for
Um.
Canada. I don't think.
Yeah, well, as it never is.
Side note: I'm still holding out on the a sequel announcement for the Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City
Oh,
movie.
right.
which is kind of in the same vein as this Mortal Kombat movie. I feel like, but maybe
Right,
even a
like low
lower budget.
budget, but like
But it was still a creator who was like really
right.
invested in the games and like gave fans of the games a lot to like chew on.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that movie severely underperformed, and yeah, we just haven't heard anything since. And also, I watched the first episode of that
The
Resident
Resident Evil
Evil
show.
show.
Yeah.
Absolutely brutal,
Oh no, Jeremy. Oh no.
man. I couldn't believe the time I wasted, the dialogue, the 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 character choices, the character versions. I don't know. Maybe it gets better. Like it has to get better. Like there's no way it gets worse.
Right.
But that first episode, it's like it's why I don't watch TV when like people try to introduce characters and like build these stories around them. It's like why the hell should I care? And this
Well,
is like a
it's
prime example as to like you just want me to care because I like the game and the world so much,
you're just using it
but
as a
this is
launching pad.
nonsense.
Right. I, d- I honestly get very confused because I think about making movies a lot and like the process of making movies and TV a lot. And I think about like what works and what doesn't and like why, for instance, like the bear works so well is because it's like I was like it's so brilliantly simple.
Yeah, you're gonna say simple, aren't you?
Yeah, right. It's
Yeah.
just like let's get to the point.
Mhm.
Like be clear with your messaging and your storytelling, and it doesn't need to be overwrought. There doesn't have to be 20 characters. There was a
Yeah.
story the other day. I was listening to a podcast. They're talking about how the creator of The Boys, the director of The Boys, talks about how you know it's bullshit that all these people are making these like 10-hour movies on television and like and it's like that's just not how you're supposed to tell stories in that way and all this kind of stuff. And of course there's no right wrong way, all yada yada yada, but for me it's so baffling that you like okay, you're gonna sit down in a writer's room, you're gonna make a Resident Evil movie. Did you hire a single person who's played one of the games? Did you include any of the people who helped make them popular? Like why, there's clear through lines of what works and what doesn't. And like you can even look to the controversial movies, like the movies that made a ton of money, but are they really Resident Evil? Sometimes, right? And like what did they do wrong? What did they do right? What did people like from those things? There's like the answers to these questions are out there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like it just really confuses the shit out of me. So
Especially like
anywho.
the movie came out and there's a show and it has nothing to do with the movie.
Right. Plus they
I
have
don't
those
know.
animated movies at the
I
same
just got
time.
I guess I just got like trapped into like I'm just a huge Resident Evil fan and I gave it a shot. Also, there's that billboard that's like this video billboard that had like a liquor, which is like one of the
Right. Yeah, yeah,
monsters
yeah.
in the game, and like it
You're
looked
like,
like
that
he
looks
was like
cool.
bashing out of the screen and crawling around. Like it's super cool looking. That got me super hype. But yeah, just a huge
Did you hear
letdown.
that Resident Evil 7, or is it Village, is getting a re-release for a third person? You can play the game in third
No,
person. Did you hear about this? Does that entice you in any way?
no, it didn't.
Like,
I mean, I think the what I hear is that people just love those last two games because of the VR to it, right?
that is certainly been a big piece of it.
And
Yes.
then I famously never played those games because I said I need to have a VR headset
Headset. Right.
if I wanna kind of experience those experiences.
I just know for a fact that I would literally shit myself if I tried to play those games in VR. So that'll never happen for me. But
You're
I
gonna have to
appreciate that.
do RE4 remake though when it comes out.
I guess so.
That game's gonna be scurry.
We'll see. We'll see. Okay, moving on. Miles Teller has apparently had some conversations with Tom Cruise about a possible
Rooster.
Top Gun 3, which, not surprising when a movie makes that much money. Tom Cruise is set to make over $100 million himself just
It's
for that
still
movie.
making money, man. I saw
Yes.
somewhere the other day like it made 19 million over the weekend. It's like,
Yeah, I know.
what?
It's so crazy. I know. And it's about to go into it's about to release on digital. You know what the funniest thing about this whole Top Gun thing is? An article I read today that had quoted a Sony executive. I don't know if you saw this. A Sony executive talking about how Venom paved the way for this. Oh my
Oh
god.
yeah, I did see that. I was
It's
like,
so
what?
funny. This is Sony Pictures Motion Picture Group
What are you
co-president.
trying to do here?
Yeah, Sanford Panitch said, quote, "There's so much press about Top Gun right now. It's like the movie business is back. In a weird way, I would say Top Gun is benefiting from us taking our shot. Venom is the start of that story that allows Top Gun to do the kind of business it did." So
What?
added Sony's other co-president Josh Greenstein, quote, "When we first started releasing movies like Venom Let There Be Carnage last October, there were really no other big movies. We really had everyone had
What?
pushed their big movies into this year, to this summer. We took a big gamble putting Venom in theaters. Get fucked, Sony.
What do these
What
people
are you
do?
talking
How
about?
do these people get paid? Like, what are they actually doing in these
I
huge
don't know.
offices and their mansions and their Rolls Royces?
Yeah.
It's like, what are they? They just, oh, I'm gonna write this today and send it.
Well,
Like,
it's more like, I think it's more like they're like, well, what's our press strategy? Oh, we haven't talked about any of the new movies, and we had to release news that we're bumping back our Madam Web movie that people
But
definitely
like,
care
why the
about.
fuck are they talking about Top Gun? They have nothing to do with that shit.
Because, dude, they just
Clout.
want the rub. They want the rub.
Yeah.
They're just like,
Clout
oh, Top Gun's
chasing.
the biggest movie in the world right now. Let's talk about how we
have
paved the
something to
way.
do about that.
It doesn't even make sense. It does not even compute to me, this idea that movies like Venom paved the way for Top Gun. Jeremy, help me out here. How could they possibly mean that?
Absolutely garbage, except for
Tom Hardy's
Tom
performance.
Hardy.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yes.
If Tom Hardy wasn't
No
in
one
that
would
movie,
care.
those movies, it probably wouldn't have got a sequel. Well, I get. Well, did the first one make $1 billion? I don't remember. No,
It didn't make $1 billion, but it made a lot of money. Yeah, it made a lot of money. Yeah. It was
But
one
it
of
had
those.
decent marketing. Tom Hardy's huge. It had the Eminem song.
I think that what they're arguing is that these like big summer blockbuster made for movie theater type movies, that's like, oh, we were making these movies before.
Venom.
It's like, like, what are you talking about?
Venom is like, especially Venom 2, the CG, it's just so muddy and gross and not clean. I don't know.
So maybe the hint here is that we took a big gamble putting Venom in theaters, is the quote, right? I think maybe what they're saying is that, oh, Tom Cruise is talking about how this movie was made for theaters. We had to hold it. We had to hold it. We had to hold it.
Yeah,
meanwhile,
that's brilliant.
Right.
Like,
and meanwhile, what Sony's saying
Top Gun is literally for the better. Is going to change. It could change the movie
course
landscape.
of movie theaters. Yeah, that would be good
going forward. Well, it's what you greenlight, what what you put your money into, the product. Like, it just shows you that you need a quality product that people put passion and effort into.
Do you think that's the lesson they're going to learn, Jeremy? Really? I just don't believe. I don't have the faith in that. Come on.
I mean, movies need to be exciting and thrilling. And if it's not an action movie that can have those types of things, the story needs to be well written and well executed and well paced.
Yeah. Easier said than done, I guess, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess, I don't know. I thought that was really funny. That being said, this news about Miles Teller talking to Tom Cruise, not necessarily surprising. Would love to see a Top Gun 3. I don't know what that looks like. By the way, also, have you heard the fan theory, that all of Top Gun 2 is a dream sequence taking place by Tom Cruise after he dies?
Didn't I say that like the beginning of that's like a short movie, and it's super weird how we don't see like the traumatic sequences where like the ship is the plane's crashing, or like
we just see like the little pieces.
We just see like the beginning of it and then the end of it.
Yeah.
Even in the training session when like the two have to eject.
Yes.
It's like we don't see any of like the disorienting or dangerous, like vicious, like crash it, like all that stuff. And then in the beginning of Top Gun, he just goes faster, faster, and faster, and then we just know he has to.
Yes.
He has to eject.
Yeah.
Right, and then we see this beautiful wide shot of the plane like smoking on
exploding.
fire,
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Falling to the ground, and then we just see Tom Cruise like
walk into that bar.
It's like what like it was confusing in the moment. Like, well, I mean, he was going record speeds.
Yes, fastest man alive.
Yeah, Like how, and then we just get okay, whatever. We're
I just
we're in
like
top 22
I don't
now.
think that is the text of the movie. Like I think it's just a
No, that's not
really
what they're trying to
fun.
do.
I think it's just a really fun fan theory. Like I'm like
Yeah.
100% behind people being like, yeah, that's what I think. That's my headcanon. Sure. I don't mind. It's just like there's enough there. Why not? Okay. Last movie story here. Alex Garland has wrapped his follow up to Men, called Civil War, and told the New York Times that it's probably the last movie he'll direct. I found so I just skimmed through some of this piece, this interview with New York Times, and it is fascinating. Alex Garland, really cool dude, apparently. Obviously, brilliant writer, right? He wrote films like 22 Days. What is it? 21 Day. What's the zombie movie? Here it is.
28 days later,
28 Days
28 weeks
Later.
later.
He wrote Sunshine. He wrote Dread. He
Oh,
wrote,
so good. All
like
everything
these.
there is
Yeah,
brilliant.
those are all amazing movies. And then of course he directed movies like um, Ex Machina and Annihilation. Right? People are saying Men is really great. I haven't seen it. I just have to be in the right headspace to watch an Alex Garland movie. It's just they're always so depressing. So anyway, he talks about how he doesn't. He's like, I'm tired of feeling like a fraud, and he's like, he talks about in here how let's see here, where can I find the quote? Yada yada yada. Well, I just want to find the quote here. He talks about how he wants to step back from filmmaking because it exhausts him. He feels like he has to play a role. So I'll just read here from the question, basically why he wants to
Filmmaking
step
for
back.
sure exhausting.
He says, I'm not temperamentally suited to being a film director, he says. And the question is, why is that? He says, it would be more honest probably to say I don't particularly enjoy it. It's something I have to force myself to do. It's incredibly sociable because you are with a large group of people the whole time. And in my case, having to do a lot of role play. At the end of each day, you feel a bit fraudulent and exhausted. And then the follow-up is because you have to become a bit of a showman. And he says, yes, exactly. I will find myself standing in front of a group of extras saying, all right, so what's happening now is da-da-da-da-da. I raise my voice, being encouraging and intense. It just feels incredibly performative. Whenever I watch a chat show and I see the host engaging in witty banter with a guest, I look at them and think, what if they're feeling really depressed right now? Yeah, it's so crazy.
That's completely different.
To him, it's not. You're just saying that when he has to be on a film set, he can't let his true feelings come through, I think is what he's saying.
That's very strange. Well, how did he even become a director then?
Well, because he was writing these movies, and I guess it's unclear to me. I don't know the full story, but it seems like what happened was he had scripts for movies like Ex Machina, and people weren't interested in making it, and he's like, "Well, fine, I'll make it myself," right? And now he's made a couple movies, directing and writing, and they've been pretty big hits, but like not like massive, huge successes. And it just seems like it sounds like he's exhausted. He's quite old at this point as well. So he's like, it's one of those things, I guess.
How old is he?
Let's find out. He's right at the top of here. I want to say he's into his 60s, or something like that. Actually, you know what? He's not that old. He's only 51. So
yeah, that's not old at all.
Yeah, no. So he's got lots of time. But I mean, I find it interesting.
I like how he just kind of, he's just being pretty honest. And like to me, it's like, hey, if you're the director, you're harnessing everything about this movie. You have this vision, so therefore you have the energy and the excitement to exude all that, to express all that to everyone around you, so that you can nail this thing you're trying to make and get everybody on board. So with him, he's just so like, I guess he's so caught up on what he's written, what he's done. It's almost exhausting for him to kind of get everyone to get on board with him, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he's kind of talking about.
I just think so. He says here is like there's a question here. It's a follow up here that says, still, I think you would want to be on set to supervise the physical realization of your worlds and themes. He says, oh yeah, but that's the limit of it. There are many directors where the set is where they need to be, and want to be more than any other place. And as soon as this film is finished, they're scheming to be on the set again and in that space with as short a delay as possible. And that's just not me. And so the follow-up here is that I've seen some directors reach old age, and it's as though they have to keep directing in order to live. Sometimes there's another film placed in front of them even before they finish the last one. And so
What does that
see what he's
mean?
talking about here. So yeah, I mean, this idea that like some directors as they get older, they just keep making movies, and it's like they maybe aren't stopping to think about what they're actually making. And so Garland's reaction here is like, no question. I immediately, as you said that, I had a Rolodex of names appear in my head, and I was thinking that's exactly who he's talking about. But there's another kind of director who suddenly stops. People like Peter Weir and Alan Parker. They must have been walking away from something, and maybe they just tired of it. So I don't know. I just find it really fascinating that Alex Garland just being open and being like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I just want to write now. I want to go back to just writing stuff, And I think that's totally fine. And honestly, as long as he continues to write, I think we'll be getting a lot of amazing stories for a long time. He's a brilliant mind. There's really no one like him that makes movies like him. No one. Okay. I think that's a good segue into an agree or disagree segment, which will lead us close to the end of this episode. So there's a piece here from No Film School, which is a great resource for kind of up and coming filmmakers. And I'll just read from it here. Over the pandemic, it felt like no one could be as successful as Netflix. While everyone else was scrambling to find out how to shoot, Netflix was here with weekly content. Their stock skyrocketed, and they enjoyed a few years in the limelight. They even had another Best Picture chase with Jane Campion's The Power of the Dog. But then things got a little hairy. They lost some subscribers, the stock dipped, and suddenly Netflix was looking for hits and not finding them. It's been a weird few months for Netflix, but as they plan out how the next few years will go, one of the most successful collaborators is worried. Enter Jane Campion in a new interview with BBC. She theorized that Netflix might be pickier about their projects and then elaborated, quote, maybe what's sad is not taking risks on people without names. Campion went on to say, quote, the film couldn't have been made talking about the power of the dog without the theme, without them, because we took it to the market and there were several different people interested, but we had budgeted the cost of it, and the only people that were willing to go near that was Netflix. She finished by emphasizing the importance of relationships, saying, I don't think it would be hard for me if I wanted to do something because I've established a relationship and they're very incredibly loyal. And so that sets the stage. Just for context, between April and June this year, Netflix lost another 1 million subscribers on top of the 200,000 they lost between January and March. That's 1.2 million between the beginning of the year now of lost subscribers for Netflix. So they are scrambling. The worry here is as Netflix reinvents itself or tries to reinvent itself as they're bleeding subscribers, does that mean that they will stop taking risks on up-and-coming filmmakers? And so, I think I kind of talked about this a little bit on Twitter when I originally kind of reposted this, which was that I think it's a bit of a catch-22. I think Jane Campion makes a great point. I think 100% they're going to be more choosy. They're not going to be making the same types of movies they've made, but I don't think that that's a bad thing because the movies they've been making largely have not been very good. And I'm speaking broadly because I think The Power of the Dog is very good, but and so is some of their other Oscar bait content. But largely speaking, it's not been great, and you can argue, sure, that it's provided a platform for new filmmakers, up and coming filmmakers, to prove themselves. But listen, like again, this is kind of that balance. It's still a business. People need to like the stuff that they're making. It's not a charity case for up and coming filmmakers. So, I appreciate Jane Campion's concerns here, but I think disagree with her concern because Netflix does need to reinvent itself. It does need to be more choosy about its content. And with all due respect to up and coming filmmakers, I know it's hard to get into that space. It's talked about all the time, but as a consumer of these things, as a subscriber to Netflix, as someone who loves movies, I don't love Netflix movies, and I wish that was different. So I don't know, Jeremy, what do you think?
I don't watch Netflix movies, so
Right. But exactly. Exactly. Right? I mean,
I just think most movies today like suck. It's
I,
not until a director is all in on a project, and you know what I mean, and there's love and effort put into it,
right.
where it's something that draws me in.
Well, like
But when
for
there are
instance,
these
the
manufactured kind of, IPs gained and then created by a bunch of people
right.
to appease the wider audience, but then it just, I don't know, it's a weird time and place. But there are movies like Top Gun and things like that that just kind of come out of nowhere and
Hmm.
are genuine, like real fun experiences.
I mean, I think you make a great point about like people being engaged. I mean, like I said, Power of the Dog is good, and that's a movie that Jane Campion wanted to make, and she had a plan and she had a vision for it, and she went out and made that movie, and I think that's great. Netflix backing that type of movie is a great idea. It's like, does she worry that they're not going to back movies like that? I just disagree that that's going to be the case. I mean, it, I don't know if that's what she's really saying. You know, I think about movies like Nope, which the reviews are coming up for it, getting 9s and 10s and high 8s, and Jordan Peele just understands. He's like he has that just makes good movies, right? Understands
Yeah.
what it takes to make a good movie.
What
You know,
other movie would you want to see right now if you're gonna go to the theater?
it's got to be Nope. There's no other movie I want to see right
Sure.
now.
You know nothing about that movie. You're gonna sit there. You're gonna be scared. You're probably gonna laugh
Yep.
all over the place. You're gonna be thinking a lot. A lot of really cool actors in there.
Yep.
Uh, like Get Out. I watched that movie like 3 times in a row. I think when
It's so crazy.
I'm like, this movie is insane.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think so. I went to see. I think it was Thor. I went to see Thor, and they had released a new. There was a new trailer for Nope that was playing in front of it, and it revealed so much more of the
Right.
movie, and I was pissed. I was like, man,
Yeah.
I didn't want to know any of this shit. Like, the first trailer was so good, and it turns out like they hadn't, I guess, finished some of their CG work, and
Mm.
so there's some of those same shots that were in the first trailer were in this new one, but it had like UFOs in it, and I'm like, fuck, I don't want to know any of this shit. I didn't want to see. I didn't like. It was so cool. I thought the way that they marketed that movie, and I, I can kind of sympathize with the marketing people of that movie. They're like, well, we have to show something. Like, no one knows what this fucking movie's about, you know. So I have to. I got it. I guess I understand that, but I was disappointed. I'm still gonna go see it. I'm hoping to go see it. I'm heading out to the lake this week, coming weekend, but I'm hoping to go see it before then, maybe tomorrow night. So, anywho, um, any final thoughts on that? Agree or disagree?
No.
Okay. And then leads us into what we've been watching. I just wanted to mention I did see Thor: Love and Thunder. Jeremy, I don't think you've seen it, right?
I have not.
And it's been getting a lot of hate. I feel like a really polarized response to this movie. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars on my Letterboxd review. And basically, my takeaway on this is that yes, it is very funny. It is largely a comedy. But it's not a problem for me. And the reason for that is what Taika Waititi has figured out about Thor that I think has always been there at the underlying element of the character that has worked, which is an earnest emotional intelligence, which is to say that he takes on the world in a very bombastic, over the top way, right? But when it comes down to the character at his core, he is extremely emotionally intelligent and understands emotion and understands all those relationship dynamics and explores them in a open and honest way. And like through comedy is largely how Taika shows that. But it's this kind of like over the top, almost too honest for his own good setups that lead to those comedy moments that feel true to the character to me, and which is why it works for me. But I can understand why if people just want to see Thor beating people up with a hammer, that's not what the character is anymore on screen, for better or for worse. In my opinion, for the better. that stuff is still there. There's still some really cool action. There's a black and white sequence in the middle of the movie that I think is very cool. I think Christian Bale, although he complained about not being in the movie enough, is in the movie quite a lot, and is good. It's kind of pretty cool. Honestly, it's very cool to see Christian Bale in a Marvel movie playing a villain like this. Like I was like kind of like the whole time I'm like, that's Batman, and I was like, that's Batman, and he's one of the best actors out there right now, and he's just putting in he's giving it his all. It's a fully earnest performance, and I really dug it. I think it's very
Doctor Strange.
No, I don't think so. I think that movie has a bit more weight to it, I would say. This movie feels fairly light, but that's not a bad thing. Like I don't think not every movie needs to feel like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. And this movie doesn't have that. And I think that's good. I mean, it's ultimately a story about relationships. It's a story about finding your place and kind of accepting where you are. And I think it's really good, really, really good. I don't think it's amazing. I don't think it's like the best. I don't think it's better than Ragnarok, but I just think it's very entertaining. It's very funny. It's smart. I really don't understand. I guess I do kind of understand it. People are like, "Oh, it sucks so much." I mean, you read the
it was awful.
Yeah, right. Like you're reading these letterbox reviews, and it's just like 1 star, 1 star, 1 star, like brutal movie, absolutely terrible. And I'm like, do these people watch the same movie as me? Like, I don't get it, because I think it comes down to what I said before. It's all about your expectations. If you go in to see these movies and it doesn't meet the version of the movie that you thought it was, you're going to hate it. And I just think you have to let movies be movies that they want to be. Taika has a specific style. And if you're either on board with that or you're not, and listen, no one's making you like this movie, and if you don't like it, that's fine. But I just think like examine the reason you really dislike it, and I'm happy to have a conversation about that as well. But I think this idea that Thor's not supposed to be funny is just inherently not true. He's one of the funniest characters in the comics because he has that natural fish out of water, larger than life, grandeur type of element to his character, and that is 100% brought through in this movie. So, yeah, I liked it a lot. I would still encourage you to go see it, Jeremy. I think you should.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna see Nope instead. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, it'll come to Disney Plus in like a couple weeks.
Oh yeah,
right?
I'll watch it like at home. I think. I don't know. It's probably not theater.
Fair enough. Okay. The other stuff I've been watching, Westworld. Westworld is very good this season. I wanted to mention this last week, but there's actually a better episode this week. We're 4 episodes in to this fourth season. So I would say the first season is absolutely amazing. Brilliant first season of television. Great HBO stuff. Second season, largely pretty bad, but some great moments within it. Season 3, forgettable. Who even knows what happened? You could actually go into season 4 without having seen season 3 and be completely fine. That's kind of the approach they seem to have taken. But they've brought back this kind of like very fun, twisty mystery notion that they couldn't quite figure out for season 3 and season 2. But they're right back to kind of the fun nature of that was season 1 and the really high concept stuff that makes Westworld engaging and interesting. And it's absolutely stunningly gorgeous to watch. The dialogue is witty and snappy and fun. The stories are interweaving and kind of overlapping, and you've got these multiple timelines going. It's like very captivating. If you enjoyed Westworld season 1 and you kind of fell off in the preceding couple of years, especially because it's been like, I think it's been 2 years since season 3.
And James Marsden is back.
And you know what, Jeremy? That's the most important piece. James Marsden is back, and god damn it, is he a good-looking man. Holy shit. It's not really fair, actually. I just like, there's an episode where this most recent episode, there's an episode where he, a sequence where he is going on a date, and he's like dressed like to the nines in this like super fancy suit, and it's like listen, I can understand why people love James Marsden the way that they do. And I just feel like this is the first time I've kind of he's had a chance to like really spread his wings from a like acting standpoint on the show. He's been kind of wooden for and purposely so previously when he was on the show, but he was given a lot more to do in this sequence, and it was very cool. And I'm hoping there's more. We'll get more of it. Big James Marsden fan coming around
Yes.
on him. And Jeremy, have you
Yeah.
finished The Boys season 3? Have you seen the finale?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. What do you think of this third season?
Man, honestly, I don't know. I watched this show and I'm not like some sort of super analyst
Sure.
on like all these details. I just find it entertaining and I love watching it whenever I can. Like I love binging it.
Mm-hmm.
I love all the actors involved. I think it's super funny. I love
Yeah.
all the commentary. I love how of the times it is. Homelander is just like the memes coming out of it are just
Oh, it's so good.
Anthony Starr is
Yeah.
insane. Like just
Yes.
the one meme of him like realizing it's that one, right, where he's like takes a deep breath
Yes.
and
Yes.
he's all worried. And then there's
Yeah.
the one where like he's smiling and confused. He's like, "Oh, all right." Like that's just being used everywhere. And now the one that's being used is like him in the movie theater with that like the
Yes.
crazy sad like look on his face. It's but yeah, I just love the whole adventure. I just love how like there's these human characters up against the soups. I think
Yep.
it's super cool that this season they play with that a little bit and the humans can get their hands dirty and kind of face these soups one on one, which is super exciting.
Yes.
Um and I like how it's all headed because the next season is supposed to be the last one, right? Or
I think so. Yeah,
yeah,
I
so I
think
like
so.
how it feels like it's heading that way with all the choices being made. I mean, Butcher obviously a phenomenal character and actor.
Ugh, Carl
Even
Urban
Hugh,
is just so underappreciated,
yeah,
and
he's
it just
he's
drives me
amazing.
nuts.
Even Huey is awesome.
Yes. Yes.
There
Yep.
everyone every single person I think I'm in love with in the
Yeah,
show.
I'm always I'm just blown away every episode how captivating the show is,
Hmm.
right? It just you once the episode starts and they do that like massive splash screen of the boys logo over something cool, right?
Right.
I'm just like awesome. I'm like, yeah, show me more. And then
Yeah.
they show there's like they'll throw stuff in like a weird dance sequence in the middle of the episode,
Hmm.
and I'm like, I don't even care. That's awesome. Sure, more.
The
Right?
the black noir stuff, kind of like
Right.
Deadpool-ish with the
Yes.
it's like what is happening here?
They just
And then Soldier Boy was phenomenal. Every
yes.
single second, every piece of dialogue. Jensen Ackles absolutely destroyed this role. Like
What I love about his performance in this series is that you know that
he's
you
so
have this
good, man.
analog to Homelander, who's this fucking megalomaniac, actual psychopath,
Yeah,
right, sociopath, and then you have Homelander, who
Soldier
is
Boy.
similar in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
but is more sound of mind in some like there is an element of sanity there, but
But he has like a
by
goal in mind, and like he won't let anyone like deter him from that.
well
And
he's
then
exactly he's at the same time he's also been completely tainted by the nature of being a superhero, this that
yes,
which
he's good.
ultimately
Yeah,
is the whole concept of the show is this ultimate power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and these people who
hmm,
get their hands, most of them generally speaking, Starlight being an example of an exception to that, and all that kind of stuff, but you even see it with Huey when he's, spoilers for the season, when he's trying to tempt V, right, how
hmm,
sucked in he is to that power rush that he
yeah.
got from it.
And
And
it puts a strain on his relationship with Starlight, and it's
yeah.
pretty dire. And it's just so cool having like a threat level, not just with the temp feed, but like with Soldier Boy
Mm-hmm.
and having this ominous presence around, and Homelander really showcasing at first how scared he is essentially,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
they kind of flip it and like they want to like team up almost. and like and then this whole like father son thing
Oh, so
is just, it's like what, which
Jer-
already happened with Homelander's actual son
right. So now
before.
you have this like 3-layered thing where you have
Mhm.
his son, you have Butcher's son, who is now like with Homelander. I think that's such a like
Yeah, and the
every
son's
time
like
the show
choosing
does it.
Homelander,
Oh
which
yeah,
is very very odd, but like obviously makes it more
it
interesting.
feels justified, right? Like you know what I mean? Like there's this the way that Butcher treats him, trying to push him away, drives him
Mhm.
to Homelander, and then it feels justified. I always feel like this show, because of the way and they, again talking about that interview with the creator where he was talking about how what's great about streaming is that you can create all the episodes and you can go back and add pieces into this first episode before it even airs, so
Ooh,
that
that's cool.
it's all threaded together, right?
Hmm.
And every single thing in this show is paid off. Not one element, not one line of dialogue is throwaway.
Hmm.
They're, like even at the very end of the season when when they have Homelander or Starlight coming to work with them at that that like classic building, and they talk about how you got to take your garbage out, like that even comes called back all the way to the first episode of the season. I just like all that stuff. It just feels so intricately planned. The performances are thoughtful. It feels true to life. I mean, there is this element of like danger because with Homelander, it's like he could kill anyone at any time. He knows that, but chooses not to
Hmm.
for what and you're not sure why. And then the same thing with what's his name, Jensen Ackles' character,
Soldier Boy.
Soldier Boy, where you have him just kind of like sitting on the couch, like chowing down on like fast food, and you have Huey there without his temp V, and it's like he could kill him at any second.
Yeah,
Nothing
both of
stopped.
them.
Nothing. Right.
But the way we're like they set up the proposal, like you want something, we want something, him, Butcher, and Huey,
Right.
and they kind of just make it all just makes sense, and they kind of build this like pretty cool dynamic with the three of them, and then
Mm-hmm.
it slowly starts to separate as Huey gets deeper in the temp V, but then realizing that he maybe made a mistake in
Yeah.
trusting Butcher to that degree, but then Butcher goes all in, and I could see him basically. He's probably gonna die, I'd imagine,
Well,
at
I
the end
think
of this.
that's probably the arc for that character. But what I do
Yeah.
love is also like Butcher has this kind of like come to Jesus moment where he has to like come to terms with the way his father treated him and the way he's been treating Huey and the way he treated his brother and all that kind of stuff. Like normally I'm like, get me out of here. Like I don't
Mhm.
care, you know? But in like I'm just like, yeah, this is awesome. Like
And
it
then
makes total sense.
their team like separates basically,
Yeah.
right? Like Frenchie and what's the other guy's name?
Mother's milk.
Yeah, like he's so good in this season. Like just
Jeremy,
the emotion that he displays,
oh,
the betrayal.
he's like Jeremy. Like I don't know this actor from like I don't like from anywhere else really, and it's one of those
Yeah.
like those things where I just feel like this is a true character brought to
Oh
life. Like
man.
I don't.
And then just the investment he has with Soldier Boy in terms of his family, what
Yes.
happened, and like the anger, and like he's just willing to fight to the bitter end, even though we know he knows that he doesn't stand a chance.
Yep.
He still grips that whatever he's gripping to launch into
Right.
battle,
Yep.
and then he's always just saved at the last second or whatever. But I don't know, it's really good TV, and yeah, again with Jensen Ackles, man, like I can't believe how good he is in this. Like just this
Right.
nonchalant, like
Right.
I don't give a fuck attitude,
Yeah.
and then all this funny stuff layered on top of that, like all the drugs and the booze and like the
Yeah.
prostitutes and stuff. It's
Right.
just like,
Reefer. Like
yeah,
it's
and
fine.
like
Yeah.
and he's also like Captain America, right? So he has to like do the craziest amount of drugs probably to feel like anything, like
Right.
kind of like
Yes.
Wolverine too, right? Like
Yep.
they just heal so quickly.
Well, I just love that he's like
Uh,
smoking weed constantly through. Like we just got to keep him
crushing
high.
crushing
Yeah.
huge pills and snorting them.
Yes.
He
Yeah.
always has a list of things. The fast food's hilarious. His demeanor, his voice, I don't know. It's just something about it. It's so it has that
Yeah.
Captain America like quality.
Weren't we talking about how I liked his version of Batman?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I d-
Long Halloween.
I think Jensen Ackles was trapped on Supernatural for 15 years, you know? And
Yeah.
listen, great show. But like that's a
It's just
long
awesome that
time
he
to be
found
one
this show.
character.
He found, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like it's just awesome that
yeah,
he found his place in this show.
yeah.
Um,
It's just like a really great like reinvention of an actor where they can kind of play a completely different style of character.
and then when he gets
And
emotional about his family or whatever,
yes,
it's an insane performance during that sequence. Like I don't know, like just the way he changes it all up, like how he's staring at Butcher when he's explaining it all. Like it's pretty remarkable what he was able to do with this
Uh,
role.
Jeremy, I talked about I think briefly in our last conversation about this. Like, there's that one scene with Homelander and Starlight on the top of that roof after Homelander kills like her
Oh,
like
right.
teen boyfriend or whatever. And
I
I
love when
just
he
thought
just
like
kills people, man. It's so funny,
it's just well, and then he murders that guy in the park at the very end, and that's like holy shit! Like
right?
what a
And
crazy place we're in
Black
now.
Noir, he just punches through him or something, rips out his
Oh
heart.
yes, yes, yeah, yeah. I like the
And I
gore
love
is a
his
bit
like
much
die
for me
his
sometimes.
yeah, but and I love all his like his huge speeches where like the people's like guts are just like spilling around him and
Right,
stuff.
and just talking like it's just not like he just like nothing matters, but these people are literally dying at the
And I
like
love the
yeah
dynamic of the Seven this whole season, like because they're just like propped up to be like the Justice League, this whole
yeah
team, right? They even have the play on the Snyder Cut and like
yep
and all that stuff, and like, but then he's just like all these crazy threats to A Train and stuff, and like I love like all the jokes he's having with him, and like just taking out so much of his anger and frustrations on him,
mm-hmm.
and then that leads to that character making crazy decisions and doing
Yeah.
crazy shit.
Well, and self-destructive ones, right? Both him and the Deep are so
Oh yeah,
ingrained in this what they thought was like again this addiction to power, right? If
yeah.
as long as they can stay in Homelander's good books, then they can keep doing whatever the fuck they want. Fucking octopuses or whatever the fuck that
The
A Train
the
wants.
Gal Gadot like music video I thought was super funny
Oh
because
my
it was just
god,
ripped
yeah,
straight out of reality.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And
I
then they
think
got
that's the
new actors to like to show up and sing little bits like Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis and stuff.
right, right,
Or Kunis.
right. I think you mentioned this at the top, but like what the show is doing with like being so true to life and just being like an unabashed, hey, Homelander is a fascist. We're not pretending like he's not an analog for Trump. He 100% like to the point where they're like
Mhm.
reusing lines and all these things. I just think it's bold. I think a lot of shows wouldn't be able to do it with like the level of care I think that they put into this. Like it fits the character. It works. It brings
Mhm.
forward terror in and of itself for what it is, but also draws a direct parallel to our own reality and and kind of like makes you think about the terrors that live here. And again, without being, I think, too preachy, right?
Mhm.
I mean, it certainly could be. I'm sure certain people think that it's too much in that way. I don't agree. I really really like what they've done there and just not shying away from it. I think it would have been easy to shy away from it, and it's much more difficult what they chose to do, and it paid off, in my opinion. So that's The
Two
Boys
thumbs
season
up.
3. Two big thumbs up from us here. And then lastly, Miss Marvel. We'll just quickly wrap on that. I don't know if you watched any of this, Jeremy, but
I haven't, no. I heard
I
good things though. People are liking it.
yeah, here's the thing. I think that it starts off very strong. I think it has a very weak middle, and then its finale is a little wonky, but has some very cool moments. I largely think the performance from the main actress is very, very good. Canadian, shout out to her. Um, and
And she's a super nerd too. Like in a lot of interviews, she's been talking about the comic book world and the
oh yeah,
universes and the 616 whole quote and how she thinks it's not the 616 because if it was, this wouldn't happen or that wouldn't happen.
right.
And then she's got a whole quote where like Kevin Feige is mad at her for saying that, and like apparently he like put up his fingers from a distance, like at a panel or like a wherever they
That's
were, and like
so funny because
put the
like she's
number
just speculating.
616 up. She's like, no, it is 616.
That's funny. I mean, like to me, I she's very, very good. I like
Yeah.
she's the best part of the show.
I think she
Um,
when she like before she was an actress or any like for Halloween she dressed up as Miss Marvel.
yes. So that's what I mean.
So
Like all this stuff
love
comes
stuff like that.
through as
Yeah.
like as being genuine, and I really appreciate that. Now, the stakes of the show are like relatively low because let's be honest, it's a teenager finding out she's got superpowers for the first time, right? So you can't really have it be world-saving stakes, and I think that's fine largely. I just think that some of the stuff in the middle, it gets very convoluted and needlessly so. And
Well, the goal of this is to really introduce this character to the masses, and then we're gonna see her pop up
in the
in
Marvels,
the Captain Marvel
yeah,
sequel, which is called the Marvels, right, or something like that.
yes, yeah, it's called The Marvels. She has a cameo appearance at the end. Here's the thing: spoilers. I think this is a pretty big spoiler. So if you haven't seen the show, spoilers for the final episode of Miss Marvel. This is the coolest little tidbit, I think, that most people probably already know. But if you haven't heard, I would say wait till you've seen the show. Or if you don't care to see the show, you'll want to hear this little bit because I think it's pretty cool. So, give you a second to leave if you need to. Okay, so at the very end or very close to the end of the final episode, it's revealed through once again using the X-Men 97 theme music that she's actually a mutant. Which
Potentially.
well, no, I mean I just don't think you use that music if she's not a mutant. I mean, they
Right.
say that she has a mutation in her genome, and then it goes.
And the issue with this is that in the comics she's an Inhuman or something.
Yes. So here's what's
Right.
crazy about this whole thing, and in to some degree, this is kind of that business side coming back in. It's super stupid, but what happened was when Marvel was no longer able to make X-Men movies themselves, they turned down the tap when they started releasing their own movies, and they couldn't capitalize on X-Men films. They turned
they couldn't use the word mutant.
Right. So in the comics, what they did was saying, we're not going to really make big X-Men stories anymore. We'll put that on hold. It's going to be small stuff. And we know that for a fact because when's the last big X-Men story that you remember? Avengers versus X-Men, maybe? Yeah. Right. And
X-Men
that was so long ago. Like Jeremy, it was so long ago.
Well, that was when I was buying comics in like 2013.
Well, you can go back. I think
2014.
you can go back even further than that. Yeah, Schism is like late 2000, like 2000, like that era, and it's like they just were like, we're not doing it. It doesn't benefit us financially. We're going to instead do the Inhumans, which was a direct kind of answer to the X-Men. It's essentially just the X-Men, but we've renamed them. They're a little bit different. But we're going to tell stories with the Inhumans now. And then they tried to make the Inhumans a thing in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They were going to make an Inhumans movie. Instead, they made a show. It's very bad. I would not recommend watching it. But if you really want to understand how the Inhumans work, sure.
Well, there's also an animated comic DVD, I think, that I have.
I think that's right. I recall.
They were doing this like Marvel Knights series where they had a bunch of like kind of offshoot or like secondary characters. I have it. I never watched it, but I remember being like, okay, they're gonna do the Inhumans thing, and like you said, it was because they couldn't really do any X-Men stuff. So Feige and everyone at Marvel were like, yeah, we'll just focus on this.
Yeah. So, and you could argue that didn't really work out in the way that they wanted, and that's fine. It is what it like. I wouldn't say it's fine. It just is what it is. So, because it's like you can't do anything about it now.
Recently,
yeah. And so now that they've got X-Men back in the fold at Marvel Studios, they're starting to
kill Professor X.
Well, they've killed a version of Professor X, right? Now that they're
bitch-ass version.
Yeah, our version of Professor X would never lose to Wanda Maximoff.
No.
But regardless,
the child of Magneto.
Right, which of course they haven't addressed, which I'm sure they will in some sort of crazy convoluted way. But what's fascinating about this is that what seems like they're doing is just going about it the opposite way, and they're saying, you know that those Inhumans that you liked, well, now they're X-Men because we actually like the X-Men, and we're doing something with the X-Men, so she's a mutant now. And I can understand why for certain people who are or really like the character and really love her origin as an Inhuman, that would be upsetting. I certainly sympathize with that. But as someone like myself who does not have that same level of attachment to the character, I actually do kind of like that she's a mutant. I think it makes more sense. It fits her into the
Okay,
world better
for me,
because
I'm not a fan of the Inhumans or whatever,
right,
but I am a fan of X-Men. Like I
right,
think we both are.
yeah,
So if I'm playing devil's advocate for the people who are upset or they take issue with it,
hmm
to me it's like, hey, you're just gonna interject this known character, relatively new character, and interject them into the X-Men lore and history is kind of invasive, I guess.
I mean, I can see that. What I would also here's my kind of counter argument to
It's
that.
like new canon.
Yes, but we're also introducing the X Men into a world that has been like very well established, and that's going to be very difficult in and of itself.
Mhm.
And I think there's always kind of I think you look at different X Men teams. There's always that one. It's whether it's Jubilee or it's someone else that's kind of like that teenage girl character. Maybe
Mhm.
they just want to have a Miss Marvel be that entryway for that segment of the fandom into the X-Men, right? Instead of saying, "Hey, remember all those old characters that your parents liked?" Right? Um, here's a character that you can appreciate. And ultimately, here's the thing:
Like
the Inhumans are not
Nightcrawler and
established.
Bishop,
Yeah, right. um,
Colossus, all these badass characters.
right. Um, if the Inhumans are not a factor in the MCU, you'd have to introduce
Well,
the Inhumans as a
they
whole
will be though
concept now.
because Black Bolt is literally a part of the Illuminati.
Sure, again in that universe. But
Well, he was in multiple universes.
okay, what if they do this there, Jeremy? What if they do this? What if they just erase the Inhumans altogether and Black Bolt's just a mutant?
No.
No, you don't want
I
that.
think it's cool that the Inhumans are a thing that like we don't really know much about. Like why just why just shoehorn all them into as mutants? Like that just seems like such a cop out.
Well, and here's the thing. The other kind of side of that is I don't think you even need to necessarily close the door on
Mutants is a whole
someone
different
being
thing
like
though, man. Like mutants was all about like of its time too, like being different and like
yes, but I
the
mean to
bullying,
be
the
fair,
chastise, like
so the Inhumans is it's the exact same story, dude. It's the exact same
yeah, but like they
concept.
could like pump some steroids into the Inhumans and add some cool elements to it
Well,
and
there
make
is
it its
already some
own.
cool elements like stuff like
So what I mean, just expand those things.
well, I listen. I understand. I can also understand why they made this decision.
Well, it's like in DC, right? Like with the whole Robins thing.
Right,
It's like
right. That's stupid. Yeah.
you're really gonna have five Robins, you know? Because like in obviously in the Snyderverse, it's only one.
Well, I mean, I guess if that's the thing, your challenge
There's
is
just certain things that you need to simplify.
there's
And
just
if you're
yeah,
saying that the
exactly.
Inhumans is not that much different, and they tried, didn't pan out, but I feel like they could try again because they're just in a different mode now, especially with Black Bolt and getting that actor back and having him have a huge
Yeah.
appearance in Doctor Strange. He's gonna need to have a redemption. Obviously, I think a lot of those characters are
Right.
that got offed.
hmm
So yeah.
Well, listen, and that's the other thing. What I'm saying is, I don't think it necessarily closes the door on Inhumans, just because
No.
one Inhuman, whose powers, by the way, were already different from the comics, are now, you know, are is now a mutant. I just think it's like, and for all we know, at one point they could be like, well, she's a mutant and she's also an Inhuman because there's really nothing that says you couldn't be both.
Mhm.
So, who knows? But it just here's the thing. I really love that Marvel is just leaning into this X-Men theme. Like they just like people love this theme.
It's I guess
You don't like that?
it's
I
just so
love it.
cheap. It's so cheap using it though
I don't think so.
in
I
this
think
show
it's a cool musical cue that
for
when
sure.
people who
Yeah,
know it, and if you don't, then you kind of start learning it over time. I think it's cool.
yeah. No, I don't think it's not cool. I just don't think
Right.
we've been able to sink our teeth into it really. Like it's
Well,
just. They do it with in Multiverse of Madness, crazy appearance. The actor,
Right.
Patrick Stewart's back. He's got the
Yeah.
yellow chair. We hear the music. It's amazing. But then
Yeah.
he's off. And then
Right.
you have this, and it's a clue that she's not a human. She's a mutant. Here's a
Right.
little bit of a tease, and then we go.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So then also it's like you need to use that song. That needs to be the main song
Yeah,
in the
I mean,
X-Men podcast.
it is gonna be the main X-Men song. That's all. Like,
Well, won't it
get Michael
be? It's
Giacchino to
already
remix
going to
it.
be in X-Men '97, right? Because
Yes,
that's
which I
where it
think is gonna
originated
be when
from.
you talk about sinking your teeth in. I'm sure we'll get something out of that at Comic-Con, and that's gonna be where we kind of start
We're going this
seeing it.
weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, in earnest. Yeah, so I'm
So we
excited.
don't know if. Well, the rumors is that Marvel could be saving a lot of stuff for D23, but also Feige hasn't really had like a huge like rollout like, and this is happening and this is happening like in a long time. So we don't know.
Hmm.
It could be at Comic Con, could be not. I don't know.
Well, I
It's
mean,
definitely exciting.
I haven't been excited for Comic-Con for a long time, so this is good. I'm stoked.
And if Henry Cavill comes out, I will.
Piss your
I will
pants.
just. I will. Oh, no. I'll just be like very like
Shocked.
content. Well, I'll be. I don't know about shocked. I mean, we've been talking about this for years and years and
Right.
years, and there's been no Superman movie, and everyone tries to gloat about Superman and Lois on TV. It's like, give me a break.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. I mean, that show might be good. I'm not gonna cast aspersions. It might be
Why
good.
aren't you watching it then? You love TV.
I can't, Jeremy. I just can't. I'm
Because you know
sorry.
it's not good.
No, it's not that I know it's not good. I just don't have the time. I don't have the
You
time.
have the
I just don't have
time.
the
You
time.
always give shows the
Who has got the
time.
time to watch a 22 episode, 1 hour per episode season of a Superman show? I mean, it's like, maybe. I don't know. Maybe we'll get around to it one day. All right. On that note, we can wrap it up. You can, again, follow us on Twitter at Tower Babblecast on Twitter, facebook.com/Tower Babblecast. Watch us live on Twitch and YouTube. Subscribe to us there so you get notifications when we go live. Support the show by going over to patreon.com/Tower Babblecast. We do monthly film clubs. Look forward to us doing, please look forward to us doing,
All
Jeremy,
Saints Day.
All Saints Day, the sequel to the cult classic that is Boondock Saints. So look forward to that on the
excited.
Patreon. And we'll be back. We'll be talking about, I'm sure, all the stuff that's coming out of... You know what, Jeremy? We didn't even do the Emmy nominations. I completely forgot about that.
That's okay.
We'll do that next time. We'll get to the Emmy noms next time. I apologize. We ran out of time. But we'll get to that next time. We'll also talk about everything coming out of Comic-Con and much more, I'm sure. But we'll talk to you then. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.